Lolos.
Mayor and Council, my name is Billy Lolis. I'm an activist. It's kind of interesting today when I sat in and there's this ballot initiative to change, let the voters decide how the retirement's going to be handled. I have in my hand a Powell memo from 1971, and where he outlined the corporate takeover of America. But he was instrumental. He wrote the majority opinion in the First National Bank of Boston versus Bellotti in 1978, a decision that effectively indented a First Amendment right for corporations to influence ballot questions. And he starts off this memo. It's to the president of the National Chamber of Commerce at the time in '71, saying that free enterprise is under siege, it's under attack. And then he ran off who the enemy was. And it's pretty interesting. He says, from the college campus, the pulpit, the media, the intellectual and literary journals, the arts and scientists, and from politicians. And then he outlines a strategy for taking it over. Unfortunately, this memo didn't surface till after he was appointed to the Supreme Court in 1973, which just ironically is the same year the American Legislative Exchange Council was formed, and for 40 years they've been taking over the regulatory agencies. He mentions the courts. He mentions the political arena. He mentions all the things that we lost. Now, there's been this corporate takeover of America by Wall Street. Has the quality of our life improved at all? Let's see. In 1971, when I was in college, the American high school student was #1 in math and science. We had the longest life expectancy on earth, men and women. By 1999, we were 23rd and 25th collectively, respectfully, and our students, our kids, are like 17th or 18th in math and science. It's not working. We have for-profit prison. Our health care, we spend $2.6 trillion a year on health care, and we are the sickest of the industrialized nations. We have sick care. Try and get your provider to cover preventive medicine. They want to keep us sick. We have Monsanto, the company, the evilest company on the face of the earth. They brought us DDT and Agent Orange and all these claims about it's gonna reduce farmers' cost and end world hunger. They are in the regulatory agencies. The fox is watching the hen house. And what do? We don't do anything. We don't say anything. But I thought it was pretty ironic that this guy today, they're talking about influencing ballot initiatives. They're going to spend a ton of money to get this thing to cost the city of Tucson $24 million more a year because they want to put us in receivership. And what they do is they have their legislators join for $50 or $100 a year. The corporations pay $25,000 to $50,000. And then the legislators get flown to conferences and seminars all over the world, all expenses paid, and they hand them the legislation they want passed.
Okay, Mr. Lowe?
Yeah, it just raises the question, who paid for Rahina's 3.5 weeks in Boston? Thank you.
Mary DeCamp.
Thanks, Mayor, Council, staff, workers, audience members for your time and attention tonight. I'm Mary DeCamp, longtime Tucson resident and activist, and I want to talk tonight about branding. $6 billion was spent in the last presidential race to brand our candidates so we know who to choose. Locally, it is all the rage. There was an article in the Tucson Weekly about how the U of A is upgrading its brand. They put out a contract for $3,500 a week for an outside consultant to come in and help to develop an integrated and articulated modern image. The Tucson Daily Star said that the Chamber of Commerce wants to discard our old Pueblo brand in favor of something that's more modern and updated. The old Tucson Metropolitan Visitors Bureau and Visitors and Convention Bureau is now Visit Tucson, and they're rebranding what they do. The TUSD and PCC are also grappling with their brands. Now, I want to register my concern about brands and when the brand doesn't match the substance. Our military is branded as the good guys, but when a young soldier like Bradley Manning shares the truth, he's jailed. And he is, I would consider, tortured. When they turn the thermostat way down, they take away his clothes to protect him from suicide. Thank you. Our government is touted to us as the best in the world, but when a private consultant like Edward Snowden reveals factual information on national security surveillance, millions of dollars are spent to catch this supposed spy. Locally, Occupy Tucson campers took to public spaces, giving food, shelter, medical attention, social support, and even porta potties to the poor people on the streets. We were branded criminals for our efforts. The city spent untold amounts on police and surveillance, not to mention legal costs and incarceration expenses to squash the movement. I'm saying, don't buy the fairy dust. Don't go for the pixie dust where it's not substantial. Go local, the $3,500 per week. If you'd hand out a $100 bill to 35 people every week, the poor people on the streets, you'd get more bang for your buck. Thank you.
Donald Lacey.
Thank you. I've lived at Rita Ranch in Tucson since January 2000. Moved here after a 27-year career in the Air Force and retired with Raytheon Missile Systems in March of 2008. I'm here representing the free thought community of Tucson, the American Atheists, Tucson Atheists, Skeptics of Tucson, and Free Thought Arizona, along with the Secular Student Alliance at the University of Arizona. I'm also a member of the ACLU and Freedom from Religion Foundation. I didn't lodge the original complaint about the shrines on A Mountain, but a member of my community did. Once the complaint was made, it's not my job to challenge the motivation of the complainant or pass judgments on the importance of the complainant. Instead, it's up to me as a representative of that community to verify the complaint as a valid one and to make sure that it is addressed, and that's why I'm here. The complaint is about permanent shrines on A Mountain. The shrines serve no secular purpose and are located on city property. In short, they don't belong there. In addition, religious shrines are inconsistent with the natural beauty of the Sonoran Desert. When the federal courts evaluate complaints, they follow a couple of guidelines. The first is the endorsement test, a test proposed by Justice Sandra Day O'Connor in the 1984 case of Lynch versus Donnelly. That test says, is the government doing something that makes people think that the government is endorsing religion? The second guideline is the Lemon test, derived from the Supreme Court case of Lemon versus Kurtzman in 1971. The court's decision in this case established three prongs of the Lemon test. The government's action must have secular legislation purpose. The government's action must not have the primary effect of either advancing or inhibiting religion. And the government's action must not result in excessive government entanglement with religion. If any of these prongs are violated, the government's action is deemed unconstitutional. The city's decision to take no action is government action that violates this test. In two very recent events, in April and May of this year, involving images of the Virgin Mary on public property, city managers decided to remove them rather than to face the courts. In the case in Mosaic, New Jersey, the city manager there said, although the shrines is sacred to some, it's on public property, and in the sense of separation of church and state, we can't have a shrine there. In the case of Springfield, Massachusetts, the statue of the Virgin Mary was removed from the traffic island. Finally, there are members of the Tucson Atheists that regularly clean up the roadway on A Mountain. and other places. And Free Thought Arizona is a participant in the Adopt a Highway program. Our community is committed to provide the manpower and collect funds necessary to move the shrines to a more appropriate location if requested.
Robert Royce.
Okay, here we go. This is the situation. The legislature has mandated by statute that all cities shall have nonpartisan elections. Your attitude is we are a charter city, and this charter puts us above the legislature, so you're going to do what you want and hold partisan elections. This is what the charter says, Chapter 16, Elections. Section 1, to be primary, general, or special. Section 2, date of primary elections, general laws regarding the nominations adopted, passed in 1960. Primary elections under this charter shall be held on the third Tuesday in September of each year, in which a general election for the offices of mayor and councilman or councilman only shall be held, as hereafter provided in this chapter. The provisions of the general laws of the state of Arizona relating to and governing primary elections and the nomination of elective officers, whether by primary or certificate of nomination, being the whole of Title 16, Arizona Revised Statutes, 1956, and each and every provision of said title with all amendments and supplements thereto applicable to a city of the population and the class of this city shall apply and govern the holding of primaries and nominations of elective officers. The mayor and council shall have power to make any further and additional provisions relating to primaries and nominations of officers not repugnant or contrary to the provisions of the Constitution and the laws of the state, or any amendments and supplements thereto. Excuse me, you're stepping out of line with the laws of the state of Arizona. You're going to be in lieu of the law as of this August primary that you're holding. Now, your attitude is, this charter is supreme. Therefore, you can ignore the state statutes. But this charter clearly mandates that you obey the laws of the state of Arizona. The bad news is, this is going to be an illegitimate government come December. The good news is, this can be fixed, and I know how to do it. And I'm going to explain to the city on my next Access show on July 26th at 6:30 p.m. on Channel 20, Channel 74. I will be laying out my easy access to the ballot initiative and explaining how I'm going to ask, what I'm going to ask the voters to do to fix this. But you're way out of line here. You're skating on some legal thin ice. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you. If you don't know, my name is Sean Earl. I'm the author of Measure AZ, a citywide ordinance that makes all non-violent cannabis offenses, including cultivation, the lowest police priority in the city of Tucson. This ordinance was modeled off of Oakland's Measure Z. There are currently 2 opposing laws pertaining to cannabis in the state of Arizona, ARS 362815 and Proposition 203. One saying there is no medicinal use or benefits in scheduling as such. Another saying cannabis is medicinal and giving qualifying patients the right to consume, cultivate, and possess cannabis to treat themselves. With these 2 conflicting laws/views, there is too much of a gray area, leaving patients and innocent non-violent recreational users as targets in a flawed system. This is why I penned Measure AZ, to protect Tucson citizens from a confused justice system. Measure AZ is not seeking to change state law. It's enacting the politicians, the city attorney, and the police force to be as progressive and forward-thinking as its citizens. to quote-unquote update policy, a policy to save lives, precious time, and money, a policy of common sense. No victim, no crime. These are fundamentals in the practice of common law. As many victims of this flawed system have seen, it is not that simple. We currently have medical patients being prosecuted here in our city, a la Paula Huff, and other patients who were violated by the police and CPS and prosecutors who were found to be in the right and are now seeking restitution for punitive damages, a la Leonard Gray. Tom Horn in 2012 advised the county prosecutors in this state to lay off card-holding patients. Barack Obama said the feds have bigger fish to fry. I've been coming here now for months asking my city leaders to work with me to improve our city policy. The time is now. I ask you, the elected officials of this city, to use the guise of common sense. Be leaders in a world of wallflowers and speed bumps. This isn't about executive or legislative, it's about right and wrong. Please enact the will of the citizens of Tucson and pass Measure AZ, making all nonviolent cannabis offenses the lowest police priority in the city of Tucson. Thank you.
Van Heideken.